Coming up next on Art Rocks, a Lafayette musician who is determined to hold on to that old Creole French style.
I wanted to play fiddle ever since I was about like 13 years old, but my grandma couldn't afford me a fiddle.
A ballet theatre gracing the stage.
This is an experience where it's up close, it's personal, you can smell it, touch it, feel it in a different way that is lost sometimes in the bigger halls.
An artist who bends metal to craft underwater instruments.
You kind of come up with a name, a fish that somebody knows, and an instrument, and if you can kind of combine them together, it kind of works.
And we meet a designer who is making strides in the fashion industry.
I call my design contemporary classic because it's forever classic, but forever on trend.
That's all ahead on Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello, I'm James Fox Smith, publisher of Country Roads magazine, and thank you for joining us for Art Rocks. Louisiana's reputation for its indigenous music is well founded. Cedric Watson is working hard to preserve the legacy of Louisiana's traditional Creole style, and as we're about to hear, he's adding a few new twists of his own.
I wanted to play fiddle ever since I was about like 13 years old, but my grandma couldn't afford me a fiddle. The majority of the ones that I ever saw were always so expensive.
At that time, Cedric Watson was a teenager growing up in the small town of San Felipe, Texas. But he wanted to play fiddle because of the music he heard while visiting relatives in South Louisiana.
The kids, we'd all be in our own little world, but me, I was always in my own little world, even aside from that. So I go get on the radio and listen to the station from Jennings, and I hear people singing in French and speaking in French.
Cedric recorded music off the radio and kept it with him to listen to whenever he felt like it.
And whenever the accordion played on the tape recorders back then, I press like fast forward, then the accordion is like solo, and just to get to the fiddle, and I like let the fiddle play. I just wanted to hear the fiddle.
It took Cedric about 3 years to get his first instrument, but it wasn't a fiddle.
My grandma said that if I learned how to play guitar, that she would turn around and give me a fiddle eventually. I was 16 years old whenever my grandma got me the guitar. I was about 18 when I got the first fiddle.
Cedric has been playing his fiddle ever since.
It's all self-taught, but being around, having the chance whenever I was playing fiddle and stuff to be around these older, influential musicians, also people young like me, but in particular my heroes who are the older ones, and watching them and listening to them and their phrasing and how they like play, that really helped me a lot.
Shortly after learning to play the fiddle, Cedric also learned to play the accordion. He says that was second nature because of his native environment.
Like growing up in Texas, no matter what, you know, polka from the Czech people and the Germans that I lived around, the Tejano and that culture, but then also all of the Creole people and Cajun people that you're surrounded by in Texas, Polish people. Everybody's there, but if you put all this together, my point is that all of these are accordion cultures. I've probably been singing since I was a kid, you know, but the day I decided in French was the day I decided I liked French music. So I would imitate it, you know what I mean? If I couldn't sing like real French, I'd still like listen as hard as I can, try to know what I'm saying, and then eventually I would learn. The more I mastered the language, I could make up my own words on the spot.
Before his 20th birthday, Cedric had decided Texas was not the place to be if he wanted to play the old-fashioned Creole music he loves.
I found that the majority of my friends that had the same musical interests that I have, as far as like playing French music and stuff like that, keeping up the tradition. Also a lot of great musicians like Keith Frank, Jeffrey Broussard, they all lived here. So I pretty much said to myself, you know, I'll come to Louisiana.
Once Cedric arrived in Lafayette, he quickly hooked up with other musicians who appreciate his style and talent.
I was collaborating with Corey Leday. We recorded that first album for Valcool Records, and that was something really cool because to play fiddle with piano roll accordion or triple roll accordion. That was something that you didn't really hear many recordings of that existed in Zydeco. After that, I moved on to play with the Pine Leaf Boys, and I must have played with them for 3 to 3.5 years. With that band, I traveled like all over, all over the world. Europe, a little bit of Canada, all over the United States, West Coast. That was fun. And we were all just young, I'm the one in the band giving the Afro-Caribbean Creole influence, and they all come from different backgrounds in Cajun music and what they like. And eventually, I ended up with my own little group there, Cedric Watson and Bijou Creole, that I started. Started recording all my own tunes, and the album that I put out was called Cedric Watson on Valcourt Records. That was nominated for a Grammy. So people liked it. I've been nominated for the Grammys, about 4 times in my life. I was with the Pine Leaf Boys the first time, and the next 3 times after that, it was all like my own albums. Of course, with Valcourt Records, they pushed my name out and got me out there. That's when my name got out there as a Grammy-nominated artist, because it was for sure Cedric Watson albums, songs that I wrote for the most part. The only thing that I'm very happy and grateful for, though, when it comes to the Grammy, is that it lets me know that a lot of people really did appreciate my art and what I did, and that means a lot to me.
Cedric says his Grammy nominations haven't done much to help sustain his career as a folk musician, and he does consider his Creole style folk music.
This music is so folky and so down to earth that everyone can come at you and just be like, hey, play a waltz. Hey, play a 2-step. Or, I don't know about that one, y'all playing too fast. Just anything. People can actually come and they have these big opinions, everyone's throwing them at you. And sometimes that can be a little bit too overwhelming for a musician. You don't want to hear all that.
There are other challenges as well, challenges that plague many musicians.
Everything from like how the women, everything from like too much partying, everything from like band members could stand you up. But I've been there with the starving musician part, everything. Like as far as like I've been through times where I could only eat like 1 big meal a day and maybe snack on something else just to make me not feel hungry and go to sleep.
Despite the tough times, there is a reason Cedric maintains his course.
I can't really say that it matters the size of the crowd, but I do like to see a few people, like enough people to where it looks like a party, and I like to see them dancing. If they're not dancing, I like to see them just kind of like smiling and having a good time and loving the music. What I like about Louisiana's crowd, though, I like it here. The crowd here is that they love to dance. That's what I like about them. They love to go crazy and yeah, boy, get all, excited. They're seeing people they know. It's a community thing, and I like that.
No matter where you live in Louisiana, opportunities to connect with the arts are everywhere, if only you know where to look. Here's a list of some of the goings-on around our state. To learn more about these and other events in Louisiana, visit lpb.org/artrocks or pick up a free copy of Country Roads magazine. LPB's Art Rocks website also features an archive of previous episodes, so to see any segment again, just log on to lpb.org. The Nevada Ballet Theatre has been bringing classical ballet to Las Vegas stages for more than 40 years. We take a look at the company's studio series, in which the audience is treated to intimate performances and an opportunity to interact with the dancers face to face. Here's a look.
a benefit that is for subscribers only. They get to talk to the dancers create the work, they ask questions, there's interaction. This is an experience where it's up close, it's personal, you can smell it, touch it, feel it in a different way that is lost sometimes in the bigger halls. I started it a long time ago. Wanting to see and hear from the artists that are in your organization, who influences them choreographically, what type of music inspires them, and at the same time, dancers get so desolate and fearful at the ends of their career because they haven't had any other opportunities within their career other than taking class, learning ballets, and teaching. So if they haven't had the opportunity to teach, I can at least give them an opportunity to choreograph. So I gave them the outline of the music, and I said I wanted 2 women to choreograph for 2 men for 2 women. So they start mixing things up. I thought they did a great job. I especially liked Braden Barnes' piece. He called it a nothing, and that was based off of some jump in motocross that they do where they let go. I think for me, when you looked at his piece, he used Rachmaninoff music. He used a small group of dancers, it was 5, and it told a story. It was very subtle. The subtlety of it may not read on a big stage, but it worked for that studio series very well. The surprise for me was Amy von Horndorf's piece because she had never choreographed pas de deux before, and I asked her why, and she said she was afraid to. I said, well, why are you afraid? She goes, because I don't know what men do. I said, well, you're talking to a man who's choreographed for women, and I don't know what women feel like on those point shoes, so it's a two-way street here. I said, give it a go. I was fascinated knowing that Nevada Ballet Theatre has been here for almost 45 years now, and that is also testament to this community and longevity.
You have music, you have dance, you have the visual arts. We're developing all of that in Las Vegas now. For a young town, it's the beginning of a tradition, and it's for the whole family, which is special because Las Vegas, you know, is a gaming town. And now that we have a community of almost 2.1 million people, this should be part of that.
There's a lot of people who live here and work here and are committed to this community, and I think most of this country doesn't view Las Vegas as that. And I'm here to beg to differ because I've seen the communities.
What do I love about the ballet and what keeps me going? Seeing the beautiful young people work, and they work so hard. It's for the love of it, really. And their career is like an athlete. They last maybe till they're in their 30s. And if you see the rigorous training they have to go through to do it right, to be a professional, you see what a love of the art form it is. And they do love it. That's why they do it. And I think that's always an inspiration to me.
The most satisfying aspect of what I do has to do with when you introduce dance, and it's usually the vehicle of the Nutcracker, and kids who walk into the theater for the very first time and look and go, wow. Because to me, it's become relevant instantly. And when you watch a kid's reaction, you know you've done your job for the next generation, because they're going to take that forward.
We're southbound now to the Florida Keys. That's where August Powers is applying fire to metal and creating sculptures inspired by the wilderness that surrounds his home. Powers is also the artist come creative genius behind whimsical submarine sculptures that greet divers each year at the Lower Keys Underwater Music Festival. Take a deep breath and then come take a look.
A little more than 25 years ago or so, they had an art class down at the college. It was a metal arts. My mom gave it to me for a birthday. She said, go down, do whatever you want, I want a fountain. And it just kind of took off from there. The fountains drove me to making different types of leaves, and then the fountains also started with bugs. So there's grasshoppers, praying mantis, snails, birds, and other creatures like that. I really like making the marine life. So I do a barracuda, I do flying fish. I've started with now making wahoos. It's just almost anything I happen to like. So if you're going to make a fish, happens to be a different type of fish, but it's still a fish. You can see that it's been cut out, just cut out with these hand tools right here. It has some little marks on it so I know where fins and pieces go. First thing you have to do is anneal the piece. I'm going to start out by just running around with the heat. Into the water, out, and what you now have is a piece of metal that's just a little flexible. I don't want to do that too much. Now it's ready to be hammered. What you want to do is you start working around the piece. All the way around. All right, you can see that it's kind of domed up a little bit. The next process, you have to go back and kind of flatten it out. You have to make the body first, and then you make the head afterwards so it kind of fits it. You get it all squeezed down. It looks pretty good. It's all set. I'm going to set them down. It doesn't take very much to get them together, but what I'm going to be doing now is getting the body hot and the head hot at the same point. And when it gets all silvery and watery like that, you know it's there. It's never coming off. For the texture on the coral, what I'm doing is I use a silver braze, and you have to bring the temperature up of the copper to a certain point where the silver will melt, so it kind of sticks and it's on there, but it's still in that little molten ball. To get just the patina on a copper, which is kind of that greenish blue look, I use pool acid, and you put it on the piece. You got to be really careful with it. You let it sit for however long, and then you can rinse it off, and then you use household ammonia. And you come back in an hour, and whatever's going to change has changed, and what isn't, there's nothing you can do about it. On the instrument, Lower Keys Chamber of Commerce put out a piece that they were looking for some artists to make an underwater musical instrument, kind of fishy inspired. I had pieces of mine above me, and I happened to look up, and there's a French angel above me, and I looked up and I went, oh, French horn. That was it. And it's the sitar fish, the conch horn. So I started figuring out how to do it. You kind of come up with a name, a fish that somebody knows, and an instrument, and if you can kind of combine them together, it kind of works. Every time I make it, I go, you know, I'm going to make a really good one and keep it. I do keep some of the pieces and stuff like that, but it's always a challenge to me to make it better.
We're back home now for our Louisiana Treasures segment. Now, you can't drive down Cotton Street in Shreveport and not notice the majestic Church of the Holy Cross. The church was designed by noted architect Charles William Bulger. Rector Reverend Mary Richard lets us in on a little bit of this landmark church's history.
The Church of the Holy Cross was built in 1905. It was then St. Mark's Parish Church. The architecture is Gothic, I think of around 11th century, maybe 12th, but the building itself is 110 years old. I see a building that probably would not be built that way today because it would be too expensive. I see a solidity there, a timeless quality. I feel very fortunate to be here because I love history and I love old buildings and old neighborhoods, and this is what this neighborhood is. And the church has always been integrated into the neighborhood. When St. Mark's moved to Fairfield in 1954, a group of about 100 people stayed here and formed the Church of the Holy Cross because they believed that the church should have a presence in the inner city. There was originally a house on this lot that's now vacant. That was the parish house. They had the church offices there, the choir room was there, and at some point that was torn down. I don't know when that was, but now it's our rose garden, and it's a garden for meditation. The people who live around here, who are mostly homeless, but some live in apartments and houses, come and just sit here and meditate.
The pews, the stained glass windows behind the altar, the credence table and the altar rail all date back to the first church built on this site in 1860. Houston fashion designer Chloe Dao gained national recognition when she won the second season of Project Runway. But that was just one stop on a long creative journey. We visit Dao in her studio now to spy on her creative process from start to finish.
Actually, I watched Dead Poet Society. The movie changed my life. I dropped out to be a fashion designer, and one weekend turned out to be 8 years. So I just went to one weekend to New York to see if I liked it, and I told my mom I'm not coming home. I found an apartment. I enrolled in FIT, and then the rest is history. Hi, I'm Chloe Dao, fashion designer, entrepreneur, and business owner. What led me to fashion design is really not a question what led me. It's kind of like something I really need to do. I realized as I got older, I just love creating, and fashion designing is just kind of one way that I like to create. I grew up in Laos, born there. I came to the United States when I was 8 years old. I think subconsciously my design is pretty much influenced by the Vietnamese ao dai because it's very minimal, it's very form-fitting, it's very flattering. But I love a design that is flattering to the woman's body. I love minimal designs. I love the sensuality of a woman's figure. I design dresses, cocktail dresses, evening wear, sportswear, pants, jacket. My specialty definitely is dresses. When I start a collection, it's been percolating, kind of sizzling. I look at everything that's actually in the retail market. Then I looked at online, in the fashion calendar is 6 months ahead. So I looked at every other designer worldwide, what they're projecting, and I kind of gather all that. And then I decide what I want to personally do, because it's a combination of what I think my customer needs, what I want to design, and what is on trend. So it's three factors that comes all in together. I gather my fabric, and then I put it on my walls, and then I edit my fabric once I put it on the wall. And then once that fabrication is edited down, then I start designing pieces to go with the fabric.
Can't go wrong, everything matches.
My assistant and I, we literally sit down for 2-3 days. This is our fabric, this is the theme. We have a mood board that we created already. This is the mood that we're going for, and we sit down and we just sketch pieces. And then we pick one sketch, each of us, and then we drape it on the mannequin. And then at that moment, we're still tweaking, and then we make the pattern. Then we actually cut the pattern, and then we have a seamstress who sew it, or either I sew it. And then once the sample is made, we fit it on a fit model, and that's one piece kind of starts the rest. So it's this domino effect, and then we'll figure out the run of show. Each fashion show, we try to do at least 28 pieces. That's for the runway. The most challenging aspect of designing is it's really a business that combines commerce and creativity. So it's not just about making beautiful thing in this world of social media and the internet. You have to play so many different roles now. That's really challenging. I actually had Lot 8 from 2000 to 2012, and it was my baby. That location was ginormous. There was a lot of wasted space, and before it was the design studio, we also had a Lot 8 salon in there. But everything moved apart and didn't make sense anymore to have that much open space in the back. A very smart woman, I had dinner with Janet Gerwich, the founder of Laura Mercier, said, Chloe, you're a brand. Accept that you're a brand. People recognize Chloe Dao more than they recognize Lot 8. You know, if you're going to shrink your store down because everything's moved, it makes sense to just rebrand it. And so that's why it's Chloe Dao now. I actually love season 1 of Project Runway. It's one of my all-time favorite shows. And I found out the casting for season 2 was actually in Houston, and I couldn't believe it. But I was still debating to do it or not. And thank God my sister Sydney said, Chloe, you make 3 garments in 12 hours. You can do this show. And so I woke up that morning, I made a garment, I put it on, and so that I can showcase that, hey y'all, I can make clothes in 12 hours. I made it in 2 hours this morning. And I guess the rest is history. My favorite part of being a fashion designer, I think it's really helping women to educate themselves to dress better. I want people to take away that it's always a piece that you can pull out in the closet. It's not meant to buy, and it's not a one-season dress. It's seasonless. It's super classic, but it's always on trend. I call my design contemporary classic because it's forever classic, but forever on trend.
To learn more, visit chloedao.com. And that's going to do it for this edition of Art Rocks. But remember, you can always watch episodes of the show at lpb.org/artrocks, which is also a great place to find out about what's going on in the arts across the state. Until next week, I'm James Fox Smith, and thanks for watching.